Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're gonna have some fun. Start off the new year right. Battleship Pensacola, maybe the best battleship at tier 6. Yes, it is a cruiser, but the Pensacola is absolutely crazy at this tier. It didn't used to be like this, not always. It had the good guns, the AP here absolutely slaps. We get so many citadels with this ship. At mid-tier, cruisers are rather squishy, large, very vulnerable citadels, and Pensacola AP is amazing. Improved pen angles, it's awesome. Even into a Talon, this 2-tier up-tier game, we can still fight the enemy cruisers and do very well. But what really sets the Pensacola apart is its armor. This ship does have a large exposed citadel. You got to be very, very cautious about giving broadside. But when you're angled, this ship has 25 millimeters of armor everywhere, which means any battleship that does not have 380 millimeter guns and above, which is the vast majority of the ships you will be fighting, the battleships you'll be fighting at tier 6, tier 5. Sure, there's some outliers that do have them, but 356 is the more common battleship caliber at this tier. You can just auto bounce everything. Angled, they will not be able to pen you. It's crazy. Imagine Des Moines had 32 millimeters of armor at tier 10. Just everywhere. Bow, stern, deck armor, upper belt. That's kind of what Pensacola gets to do at tier 6. It is hilarious being able to have this level of tankiness against battleships. Not only that, this ship has relatively good firing angles. A lot of the time when you see a ship this tanky, you typically can't shoot all your guns without giving so much broadside. Nice little dev strike into the Nuremberg to start us off. Yes, I had a lot of fun playing this one. This is a bit of a sleeper at tier 6. Maybe you haven't played it since grinding Des Moines years ago. This is one to keep in your port, I think. Don't sell this one. This one is really, really fun to play against its own tier. Tier 6 ranked comes up, something like that. Pensacola can be amazing. Even into random battles, you can have a really good time. Now you're going to notice I'm shooting mostly AP, and there are certainly times where I should be swapping over to the high explosive, but the improved pen angles here these American heavy cruisers get means you really don't have to swap all that much, especially when you're fighting these cruisers. I guess overpens will still be an issue. The full battleship experience. Sure, you can get the dev strikes. You also get the overpens. Next time, though, we do manage to grab a citadel on this Helena that is pushing us. Still, very, very good result. But those overpens, man, feels a little bit bad. The HE is very good, though, too. I just really love these massive salvos we can get with this armor piercing. The improved pen angles make it so consistent, for the most part. But I should swap to the HE. I'm just too greedy for those black ribbons, you know? In this game, I've actually got a secondary build on Pensacola, of all things. Yes, secondary Pensacola. I did swap over to the main gun build. That's what those first clips were as well. But secondary build, guys, you can do it. It has 150 meters of dispersion on those secondaries at 10 kilometers. The secondaries don't reach 10 kilometers, but I like to compare secondaries at 10 kilometers as it gives nice round numbers. Standard battleship dispersion at 10 kilometers for secondaries is 600 meters. We have 150 here. So we're pretty accurate. We don't have the upgrades on cruisers for the commander builds to buff the accuracy, but it's already baked in, so accurate. Napoli, for example, it's a cruiser with secondaries, we all know, and 240 meter dispersion on those secondaries at 10 kilometers. So you're quite a bit more accurate, even than a Napoli with these secondaries. They do not have the best angles, they don't have the best pen, they don't have the best reload. It is not a build you should run, but we're here to have fun, so we gotta try it out. We're full sending here, we got the best matchmaker possible as far as tiers go. So against tier 6 battleships, Fuso cannot overmatch us anywhere. So we get to push in, full send it at this poor enemy destroyer. We got ourselves a 4-kilometer hydro, and we're relatively quick, maneuverable too. We can dance around some shells, hoping that helps us against the torps as well. We're much more maneuverable than a battleship. Although our turret traverse is much closer to that of a battleship. We're easily able to outturn our turret traverse, so you got to be a little bit careful of that. Bit like playing Yamato at times, where you turn your ship and your guns simply do not keep up. As for citadeling battleships, no, we can't quite do that, unfortunately. Fuso is a little bit too well armored, but look at us, man. We're just taking no damage. I mean, a few overbends to our superstructure, I suppose, but that's really not too big of a deal. Still broadside on the Fuso, yeah, 6 torp protection hits. We just simply could not get through the torp protection and that citadel belt armor, unfortunately. The AP shells are still quite good, but we gotta remember they are 203s. This isn't like we're a battle cruiser at high tier with, you know, 305s, 356s on some of them. But 305 is pretty common for battle cruisers at high tier, which can citadel battleships, especially at these closer ranges. Pensacola has 320-ish millimeters of pen at 5 kilometers. So still decent. Some battleships you will get through, some of the lighter armored ones, I suppose. But really, we're going after cruisers for citadels. We only have one so far, but let's improve that. Königsberg walking around the corner like he doesn't care, and only one citadel. That's the downside, I suppose, of running a secondary build. We don't have that full accuracy buff. That's why I wouldn't recommend it, but we're messing around. We're trying to have some fun. And anyways, we finish him off. Our acceleration allows us to avoid these torpedoes. We don't have our Hydra right now, so we're a little vulnerable, but we gotta push, man. There's a carrier to catch. And the Gallant rushes us with torpedoes. Very terrifying here. We don't know where they are. We're out-turning our turrets. We can't even hit them. He single launches the torps and gives us a perfect gap. Thank you very much, sir. That's very fortunate for us. We certainly could have eaten much, much more damage. But we're up to, you know, 600,000 potential damage. Battleships shooting at us from very close range. Torps coming past us. We still have 29,000 HP. We haven't even lost 10,000 HP in this engagement so far. Crazy stuff, man. Battleship Pensacola. When you get the right matchmaker, of course. It is so much fun, man. There's some mid-tier ships that are just absolutely incredible. We do not see a ship like this at tier 10 or higher tiers. Not really. Not something that has this level of armor against same tier or most of the same tier battleships. Serov here. Yes, citadels, getting those black ribbons. Finally getting our revenge on the carrier, although he didn't go after us too hard, but we still want to take him out. I'm pushing enemy spawn, I know. I always say not to do this, but I gotta be greedy, man. I gotta go get that carrier. Then we'll be a little more sensible, come back towards the middle of the map. But this should help our team quite a lot. Front guns only here because I'm trying to avoid those carrier strikes, of course, and our turrets did not have the time to turn before we finished him off. Oh, it's so good, man. Yeah, I should swap to the HE though, for sure. Very clearly into a destroyer, you want the HE. But I'm eyeing some of these cruisers that are pushing in, man. I gotta keep on that AP. I think I greeded out and didn't take expert loader or gun feeder. I probably should though on a ship like Pensacola. It's still monstrous HE shells. They do have 34 mil pen, 2800 alpha damage on the HE, 14% fire chance. It's good HE. I just love those big salvos with the black ribbons. 8 citadels so far. Dallas, we actually overlead him there a little bit. The shells are a little bit floaty, but actually not as bad as Des Moines shells. It's a little bit odd. But these mid-tier American heavy cruisers have slightly faster shell velocity, at least at further ranges. They don't quite have the alpha damage, but it's really nice to have pretty much the same shell velocity as the Japanese heavy cruisers, actually. So things like Mayoko, for example. Pretty much the same shell travel time. Very consistent there, at least back in the day if you were grinding heavy cruisers. We got a bunch of different cruisers now that you'll just have to get used to it, unfortunately. Tips for playing Pensacola for new players is not to rush in like this unless you know there's not an overmatching battleship on the enemy team. That's very crucial. And I got an example here to show you after this game of what happens when you do end up rushing an enemy battleship that can overmatch you. Suddenly, Pensacola feels like the very squishy ship that just explodes like it did back in the day. There's our Confederate, another double citadel on this Trento here. Hydro's back up for us to push in. I don't think his torps would reach us that Farragut anyway, but still, better safe than sorry. And triple citadel, 16,000 damage. A high caliber in Pensacola. We got ourselves 15 citadels. It's just fun, man. There's so many fun ships here at mid-tier. You do have to worry about some double carrier submarine matchmaker, of course. That is something I gotta point out. It's not all sunshine and rainbows down here, but there are some very, very enjoyable games to be had. This enemy battleship here, very low HP, and we shatter. Yeah, we gotta aim for more upper belts, and even then, some of these low-tier battleships have this dreadnought style of armor. At higher tier, you start to see battleships just protecting the citadel, and that's it. So then they have like 32 millimeters of armor on their upper belt, and you just have a field day with the AP on cruisers, even destroyers. But at lower tiers, they're actually better armored against smaller caliber guns. It's kind of funny. 129,000 damage into this one. Actually a decent profit as well. Yeah, this is with a premium account. I think blue boosters as well. We only took 15,000 damage that entire game in that whole massive push early on. And yeah, not a lot of secondary hits. So it's a bit of a meme build, but I had to show it because that is one of the weird features of Pensacola. Last game I have to show for you, a bit more normal matchmaker. You're going to see a lot of tier 7s, of course. So into some of these tier 7 cruisers, tier 7 battleships, Hood, as well as Sinop are very, very scary for us since they can overmatch us and do a ton of damage. Algerie here also on the AP, but we're going to show off the benefits of the improved pen angles on the American AP. So he gets some overpens, maybe a full pen, but we're still able to citadel him. That's the key here. You really have to angle extremely well to these AP rounds. It's not quite SAP, but it has a bit of that feel of the original version of SAP before it entered the game, where you could shoot it at heavily angled targets and still get full pens in. Congo is a ship we don't have to worry about quite as much. In fact, we even get 5 overpens there. I think that's into his superstructure. Did not expect the enemy cruiser to walk broadside, so maybe a little bit of a paid actors moment. But hey, we'll take it. Another 2 citadels for us. Stuck bow in here. I'm playing safer though. You notice I have lost half my HP already. Against cruisers, a DPM race, you don't have the best DPM. You will be losing some of those engagements. It's still a tier 6 cruiser after all. You can't expect it to just be full tanking an entire enemy team of higher tier ships. You do want to play it around islands, the open water thing. Wow, front guns, 2 citadels? That's pretty nice. Here we are definitely taking the accuracy upgrade. So playing around islands, learning to play smart, definitely going to be needed as you grind the line. If you haven't played up the American heavy cruisers yet, you'll know it gets very difficult, especially as you get into tier 8, where you can start seeing tier 10 ships. It gets very, very hard. You do not have this armor of the Pensacola against those tiers of ships once you get to those higher tiers. So you can't just tank everything. 8,000 damage into the Congo. Crazy. Absolutely wild. Pensacola is a very uniquely fun ship that does not necessarily play the same, or you don't have the ability to play like this as you grind through the line. It still plays relatively similar with the very punchy main guns, and for the most part, higher tier battleships with the overmatch will be crushing you. So, Sinop, what if we just rush in at him at 9 kilometers? Don't do this, by the way, but look at us dance. Look at that rudder shift. Avoiding the Sinop salvo entirely feels good, man. Maybe finishing off this destroyer as well. Again, still on the AP. I should be on the HE here. I was hopeful that Sinop would get a little greedy for his rear guns starting at these ranges. Maybe I could get some AP salvos into his broadside then. If he goes for his rear gun, he's showing enough broadside that, at least into upper belt, I should be able to get a bunch of full pens. Very greedy. I should shoot the HE more. I don't do as I say, not as I do, I suppose, in these cases. But we're going to stick with it. Got to worry about the hood on our broadside as well. That's the other part about pushing in like this. you gotta be very careful of who you give broadside to. You may be overmatched by things like Sinop, but when you aren't, this is actually a reasonable push to make. But those 356 mil battleships will still crush your broadside. So here, Sinop is going to shoot us, and we're reasonably well angled. 30 degree, 29 degree, and we still take a citadel. We're going to look at the armor profile in a little bit here, but just know that even angled, if they overmatch 25 millimeters of armor, which is any 380 millimeter guns and above, you will get crushed by citadels. It's an unfortunate side of a stepped up citadel. It's a bit like the Minotaur Citadel, where it has a raised portion in the middle. So even if you bait them into hitting your midsection, there's a raised portion there that can still eat sort of bow-on type of citadels. It's a little bit difficult to deal with. And playing it back in the day, you had to deal with that against every single battleship. So that's why this ship was not a battleship back in the day. It had the guns still. The guns were incredibly powerful, just as they are now. But back in the day, you had to worry about every battleship at your tier, lower tier, overmatching you, just like that Sinop was able to overmatch us there. So a little bit more forgiving these days. Very fun if you're experienced in cruisers to go back down to Pensacola these days and have that pseudo battleship experience. Hood is going to shoot at us as well, and rudder shift, don't fail me now. We only got 4,500 HP, and certainly we are able to dodge just barely. Another very good game. A lot of fun to be had here with Pensacola. I really love the American cruisers still. Even though they don't all play like Pensacola, I still love playing Des Moines, all the higher tier American heavy cruisers. They're really fun. The improved AP pen angles is so much fun to play around with. People just don't expect it, and it's very satisfying damage. And of course, Des Moines at tier 10 has insane DPM as well. You start to get light cruiser DPM on heavy cruiser guns. It's a very fun playstyle. But Pensacola is probably where you got to start with it, and it is also a very fun ship to play. And it certainly isn't a typical ship I would be playing, but we're here for fun, right? That is the goal of playing video games after all. And Pensacola, again, certainly is that. As for that armor layout, yeah, 25 millimeters of armor, man. It's just crazy to have that level of armor on a cruiser of all things. Looking at Arizona, for example, it gets 26, which is functionally the same when it comes to overmatch specifically. So these 356 millimeter guns cannot overmatch through that. And that means we can fully angle like a battleship would to anything with those 356 millimeter guns or below. That is one of the unfortunate sides about learning this game, is things like overmatch have such a massive impact on how you can and can't play your ship. So as you learn what ships have what type of guns, there's a big steep learning curve there as for how you can play some of these ships. It's quite important, as we saw what Pensacola could get away with when they didn't overmatch 25. And then what happened the instant Sinop got a hold of me. One shell hit, and I believe it hit us towards the midsection here, probably around here on our ship. And if I remove that section of armor, yeah, the Citadel does step up here. So we can't do the angle, force them to hit your belt armor. If this was all the same height, then we could do that. You wouldn't have that option to catch our Citadel here. If it was angled at 30 degrees or a little bit better, it would bounce off the side. But if it hits here, it's going right through into our Citadel. It's hard to learn that angling thing, but these stepped citadels make it quite difficult when you get overmatched through your upper belt section. That's where ships like, I think, Austin, Jinan, having 32 mil here is actually quite powerful at those closer ranges. So here on Austin, we see 32, right? It has a stepped citadel, much like we see on the Pensacola there. But it's protected by a 32 mil plate, which allows you to take battleship caliber shells here. You know, they have to be below 460s. 460s will overmatch, so do similar to what Sinop did to us. But really cool that you can start auto-bouncing shells. I like that idea. Less damage while angled, as it were, right? I'm always talking about that. So for cruisers, less damage while angled, more damage when broadside. That's what I'm always looking for. I talk about that in battleship videos a lot of the time because I'm overpenning broadsides and I'm a little bit upset about that. Not gonna lie. But in cruisers as well, man. Nobody wants to take... actually, speaking of Jinan, if you guys remember that poor Jinan in the Incomparable video. Oh, yeah. we overmatched 32 millimeters of armor. So then it's like this armor just simply did not exist, and we hit his citadel. It's tough. It can be tough. But for a ship like Pensacola, if you know the opponents you're fighting against, it's so fun, man. It can be so much fun to play this thing. A very, very great... Oh, I had Gunfeeder. Why wasn't I swapping to HE? Okay, mistakes were made. Mistakes were made. Using priority target because we need to know if we're getting targeted by multiple people. Cross maps. Very, very scary to get caught broadside in a Pensacola. This ship will still explode. But if you angle it properly against the right targets, it is a battleship. And yeah, I'm going with Pack-a-Punch as well as Outnumbered and Top Grade. So giving up a lot just to try and get the kind of secondaries going. I mean, they got good fire chats. They got crazy accuracy as well. Okay, reload. It's a meme build, certainly. I would definitely want heavy AP, though, since that's primarily what we're firing out of these guns. 4,600 alpha damage, buffing that up can be very, very good. Superintendent, don't take on Pensacola as a Pensacola-specific build. You don't need more Hydros or spotter planes. I wonder if this is here just to encourage you to take it. So once you get up to tier 9, 10, you get that extra heal. Maybe that's why it's here. Which is a good enough reason, you know, to take it so you don't have to redistribute later and spend a bunch of elite XP or more likely real money on doubloons there. Concealment's also really good. It's a meme build on a meme ship that we're running today, and the upgrades look like this. Although the secondary build did take this upgrade here, and that gets our secondaries out to 7.5 kilometers. Not bad. Not bad range for tier 6, I'm not gonna lie. And the accuracy is pretty good, although we didn't get much damage out of it. It is mainly the main guns, of course. Main guns in the name, letting us know we should probably be focused on those. And I think that's very true on Pensacola. Just a funny gimmick that this ship has, those improved accuracy on the secondaries. Massively improved even. But Battleship Pensacola, it's possible. And a lot of fun. There's fun to be had in this game. Certainly mid-tier is a wonderful place to be when you don't get the double up-tier, double carrier games. I'm right there with you. I know I've experienced those too. They are not as enjoyable, I will say. But there is good times to be had here at mid-tier. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching and have a great rest of your day.